Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everyone for attending the 2014 Public Safety and Judiciary Budget Hearing. I want to remind everyone in our viewing and listening audience that tonight we will discuss both the courts, the City Attorney's Office, as well as public safety budgets. And if you have any interest in speaking, please obtain a speaker slip by the doors of chambers and fill that out. And my legislative assistant, Devin Peros, who's just behind me, will be accepting speaker slips until 6:30. Again, reminding everyone, the speaker slips are at the front entrance of council. I will start off by introducing the particular area of the budget that we'll be discussing. At the conclusion of those presentations is when we'll entertain the public testimony based on that component of the budget. Again, tonight is discussing the proposed 2014 budget for the court clerk, the city attorney, and Department of Public Safety. This budget briefing is an important part of our process. It gives us a chance to fully examine what is being proposed and also a chance to share the information with our great citizens of Columbus. I look forward to hearing from all of you, and I certainly expect that we will have plenty of questions this evening. Again, public testimony will be taken at each component of tonight's hearing. We'll start off by hearing from the great Judge Barrows, and I ask that Judge Barrows introduce anyone that he has brought along with him. I also want to acknowledge and thank Judge Hawkins for being present this evening. Appreciate any comments that you may add, but I will turn the floor over to Judge Barrows, and he will begin discussing the court and also the possibility of an amendment related to environmental court, which I think is what has brought Judge Hawkins to us this evening. Judge Barrows, the floor is yours.
Chairwoman Mills, Councilmember Tyson, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Judge Ted Barrows. I'm the chair of the Finance and Budget Committee for the Franklin County Municipal Court. With me today, as you've noted, are Judge Dan Hawkins, recently elected to the Environmental Division of our court. I have Emily Shaw, our court administrator, and John Davenport, who is our finance director for the municipal court. Our administrative and presiding judge, Judge Green, and our vice chair of the Finance and Budget Committee, Judge Vanderkar, who also presides over some of the court's specialized dockets, were unable to attend due to scheduling conflicts this evening. The court's 2014 budget, as recommended by the mayor, is $16,190,614. Our total request modestly exceeds our 2013 appropriation by $352,703, or about 2.2%. The court operates several specialized dockets. They are the Mental Health, ADAP, or Alcohol and Drug Addiction Program, CATCH, Changing Actions to Change Habits, and the Military and Veterans Service docket, all of which some of us have spoken to you about at previous meetings. These dockets focus on providing intensive treatment services and supervision of the populations they are designed to serve. They are demonstrating their effectiveness by giving defendants the counseling and rehabilitative services essential to assist them break the cycle of arrest, drug abuse, and incarceration. The goal of these dockets is to help restore this growing population segment so that they may resume productive lives in our community. The result has been reduced police, jail, and societal costs, and saves hundreds of thousands of dollars in much-needed resources. These dockets are an investment back into our community and neighborhoods and support the goals of the Columbus Covenant of Neighborhoods and Safety, which, as you know, to engage and promote strong, distinct, and vibrant neighborhoods and to enhance the delivery of safety services. The city and county have been tremendous supporters of our efforts by providing vital funding for these dockets in the past. For 2014, the court has not sought to increase the level of funding and is respectfully seeking the same contribution amount that the city provided last year. Additionally, if approved, the county commissioners have committed to match the city's funding also in the amount of $340,000. Judge Vanderkar, who heads up our specialized docket programs, has been the driving force behind these life-changing programs. He certainly regrets not being here, as I'm sure you know, and would have loved to expound more on the success of these programs. The 10 minutes the court was allotted probably would not have sufficed under those circumstances, as I'm sure you're aware. The court is not predicated on being a revenue-generating resource. However, that's not to imply that we aren't very interested and committed to providing good leadership and building partnerships with the city by evaluating and taking advantage of ways to reduce required general fund expenses. Several of those initiatives are: in 2009, the court began phasing in the PERS employee pickup that had previously been fully paid by the city. Since 2009 and every year after, employees are paying 1% more of the employee share of the PERS retirement contribution until they reach their full 10% employee share. Since 2009, all newly hired employees are required to pay the full 10% of OPERS employee share immediately. All of the court's specialized dockets have served hundreds of at-risk Central Ohioans and continue to break the cycle of arrest and incarceration for many of them. The net result is an increase in efficiency and actual cost savings to essential public services in reduced police, jail, and social services, as well as reduced recidivism and getting program participants returned to productive and contributing members of society. In October, the Department of Finance and Management projected savings of over $400,000 in the contract the city has with Franklin County to house prisoners arrested for violations of city code. Some of those lower jail costs are attributed to lower arrest and incarceration rates of individuals who are participants of the specialized dockets. Some are a result of the court's home confinement and work release programs, and some are traced to the individual municipal court judges' sentencing patterns. During 2013, the court increased court costs for the security fund from $7 to $10 per case in an effort to offset rising security expenses. All of the court's technology costs, budgeted at $419,387 for 2014, will be paid from a special court computerization fund that receives its revenue from collection of court costs. The computerization expenses of the court are not paid using city general revenue funds. At this time, there is no indication that the resources in this that this fund provides will change dramatically. The dollar amount assessed in court costs for the computerization fund is currently at the authorized statutory maximum. We've used this fund appropriately. In 2012, the court paid approximately $301,601 for an entirely new telephone system out of the computerization revenue fund. The implementation of Voice over Internet Protocol telephone systems supported one of the city's peak performance goals. In 2013, the court also used this fund to implement audio and video recording equipment in the judicial courtrooms with an approximate cost of $204,479. The system offers efficiencies to the documentation of courtroom testimony and has the potential to reduce personnel costs over time associated with traditional court reporting. The telephone system, audio-video recording equipment, and other technology costs are ordinary operational expenses that would otherwise be borne by the city's general fund. The court approved and maintains a probation user fee fund that is supported by fees for services paid by our probationers. In 2011, the court increased the probation user fee paid by our probationers from $40 per case, a one-time fee, to $10 per month, an ongoing fee. We anticipate that the increased fees will result in revenues of approximately $541,000 annually. This fund is used to pay for programs, training, staff salaries, and other operating expenses of our Department of Probation Services that would otherwise be paid out of the city's general revenue funds. In cooperation with City Council in the state of Ohio, in 2010 the court began restoring the work release program. Now fully operational, the work release program is on pace to save the City of Columbus an estimated $240,000 annually. Likewise, approximately 600 jobs or careers are being preserved annually through this program. Work release is truly a rehabilitative program that allows low-risk defendants with steady employment to maintain that employment while serving their judicial sentence. Defendants participating in this program continue to contribute to society and are able to meet their other financial obligations, such as paying for housing, supporting themselves and possible family, making child support payments, and so forth. Additionally, by providing this program, we are also reducing unemployment and welfare costs. Program participants are required to return 25% of their earned income to help pay for the program, which also reduces the overall cost of incarceration and extends the ability of the program to service others. Our strategic priorities for this coming year include the first phase of the multi-year renovation of the courthouse is expected to begin sometime in 2014, and the Court anticipates and appreciates the opportunity to work closely with the city, architects, and contractors. House Bill 86, which passed in 2011, requires the municipal court to use the Ohio Risk Assessment System, or ORAS, for certain probation cases. The ORAS reporting requirements have added an entire new layer and dimension to the probation department's workload, and implementation of this system will continue to be a major undertaking into 2014. It was an unfunded mandate by the General Assembly. We aim to increase our strategic and efficient usage by probationers of electronically monitored home incarceration, work release, and SCRAM, a monitor which helps detect alcohol use in those people who are under probation requirements that they not possess or consume alcohol. And again, as an additional way of better using the courts and the city's resources for imprisonment by using these alternatives. Audio and video recording system was installed in all judges' courtrooms in 2013. For 2014, the court will establish standards and protocols regarding indexing, archiving, and access to this data. Also in 2014, all of the magistrates' courtrooms will have the same equipment installed, once again out of our computer fund. For 2014, the court will be required to have certifications from the Supreme Court for all of our specialized dockets. As of the date of this meeting, the court has received provisional certification from the Supreme Court for the Catch and ADAP dockets and is awaiting results for the mental health and veteran services applications. The certification process will require a continued focus on effectiveness and success rates for the 4 specialized dockets. The specialized docket program has grown to a point that it now makes good sense that the court will begin providing additional administrative and budget support and oversight to the program. I think that's kind of also required by the Supreme Court. Their standards really caused us to tighten that up. The court will obtain continuation funding from the Franklin County Common Pleas Court for the Franklin County Foreclosure Mediation Program that is very successful and is operated by the Municipal Court's Dispute Resolution Programs Office. The court received funds in the 2012 budget for a vendor to perform a salary and job classification study. And as often happens with such study, it's overdue. But we expect to receive the final report results this month. The court hopes to leverage resources it currently has within the 2014 budget footprint to adjust as a result of that report. In the event that that will not be possible, we look forward to discussing options with the city to fund personnel at a level that has been supported by a separate and independent review with expertise in these types of analysis. Before I close, I'd like to again introduce our newest member of the bench, Judge Dan Hawkins, who presides over the Environmental Court. Judge Hawkins.
Good evening, and thank you again for having me here this evening. Once again, I'm Judge Dan Hawkins of Franklin County Environmental Court. It's truly an honor to serve in that capacity. I just wanted you to know that the court does stand steadfast in support of Mayor Coleman's initiatives to bolster code enforcement resources. These efforts will assist us in holding absentee landlords and property owners who repeatedly let their properties fall into disrepair accountable to the city and to the community at large. As you know, the Environmental Court oversees a variety of cases that have a direct impact on the health and welfare of our residents. The subject matter of these cases range from animal complaints, zoning and housing code violations, and air and water pollution, to name a few. Adding much-needed resources to the Development Department's Code Enforcement Division, combined with implementing new and innovative compliance solutions, will push more cases into the court system. A large number of these cases currently are neighborhood nuisance cases, like littering and unlicensed dog cases, many of which can be disposed of in early stages. It is reasonable to anticipate that the mayor's push for code enforcement is likely to bring more serious cases to the court, many of which will not easily lend themselves to rapid resolution.
The court would respectfully ask you to consider a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $201,010 to accommodate the hire of an additional environmental specialist and one staff attorney. Together, we can work through these issues that plague our neighborhoods and craft good methods for gaining compliance and deterring neglectful property owners from becoming a source of scourge in our Columbus and surrounding communities. And on behalf of those of us assembled here, I wanted to take time to thank you, Councilmember Mills, for meeting with us yesterday to discuss the nuts and bolts of that proposal. We are working to collect the information that you requested in support. And of course, the court looks forward to continued collaboration with other government partners, including City Council, the Mayor, Franklin County Common Pleas Court, the Franklin County Commissioners, the Sheriff, and so forth, leading to greater program efficiencies, cost-saving measures, and increased funding, all of which affects the court's ability to achieve its strategic priorities. Chairwoman Mills, thank you for this opportunity. Councilmember Tyson, thank you for your patience in listening, and I would be glad to answer any questions that you or other members of council might have.
Thank you, Judge Barrows and Judge Hawkins. I was neglectful in my opening and introduction and not introducing our finance chair, my colleague, Councilmember Tyson. And she has joined us as our finance chair, so I'm glad she's here to hear the information that I heard yesterday in relationship to the amendment. I do have a few questions, Judge Barrows, if you'll bear with me. I'll start off with questions related to the jail night savings that you alluded to in relationship to the specialty docket. Can you repeat that number for me, please?
Well, the Finance Administration reported savings in the neighborhood of $400,000 over what was originally budgeted for jail expenditures. And certainly, I don't believe the court gets credit for all of that. Crime incidence has been down over the past couple of years. We do take credit, however, for the success of our specialty dockets in taking people out of the revolving door of justice. I don't have current statistics on that, but I've seen studies in the past that demonstrated that individuals who regularly had 8 or 10 different jailings during the course of a year, having gone through the mental health court specifically, which is the one that I remember seeing documentation on, those number of jail incidences for those people who had successfully completed the program had been reduced in the neighborhood of 2 or 3. These are people with ongoing mental health problems who, for reasons that are of their own limitations, will come into contact with law enforcement. But if we reduce the number of times that they, on average, see the inside of a jail, we're reducing the jail costs. The CATS program obviously serves a smaller number of people, but those people who successfully complete that program, instead of having 5 or 8 or 10 prior arrests for prostitution, which many of them had, now go through the program for 2 years without any recidivism at all. And some of those people who have gone on to graduate are attending college, getting degrees, are working in counseling programs themselves to help others, and there are a number of success stories in that. I have less information about ADAP. Drug addiction is a much more difficult problem to attack, and I think that the success that we'll see over time in terms of recidivism is going to be at a lower number just because of the intractable nature of addiction. The Veterans Service Program is too new, I think, to have generated any of those kind of statistics. I'm especially proud of the Work Release Program, and I know that you're all very, very familiar with that because I've spoken to you here at Council a couple of times about that. And that is one where people who are sentenced to jail, usually for violating the terms of their probation, don't go to jail at all, at a cost savings to the city of $79 per night, which is what the sheriff is currently charging them. Instead, they go to Alvis House, where they are allowed to go to work during the day or during their regular shift, come back and stay at the Alvis House when they're not at work, where there's programming available to help them ameliorate substance abuse or whatever problems they might also have that have brought them to that point. They continue to hold their jobs, pay taxes to the city, county, and state, support their families, and pay something of their gross to the Alvis House, which allows us to extend the availability of the program to even more people. The cost at Alvis House is $62 a night. So comparing 62 to 79 without any of the other factors is $17 per person savings. We keep 25 beds down there full pretty much on a regular basis. Sometimes when we sentence people, we have to have them come in to begin their enforcement in a week or two until a bed opening comes up. The person our probation officer who principally is in charge of that has reported to me that she's only had one person walk away from that program. Some people have failed because they've tested positive. They drop a urine test every time when they come in off their work schedule. So we're keeping a tight rein on them as though they were in jail. And when they drop positive, they go across the street to the jail. But other than that, which is the kind of failure you expect from addiction, we believe that there's significant savings to the city that can be directly attributable to that program.
Thank you, Judge Barrows. I have a couple more specific questions related to specialty docket. And as you and I know that Judge Vandekar and Judge Herbert could probably speak to this with their eyes closed, so I'll go easy on you with my questions, but certainly
Thank you, Chairman Mills.
we'll look forward to the specific answers. Related to the mental health docket, as you know, in the news, there's tons of information about our need to increase support of those who are faced with mental illness, and we're trying to do our best in every area of the city. But if you could speak directly in terms of any numbers that you can share with us related to individuals served through our mental health specialty docket, I appreciate it.
Councilmember Mills, I apologize that I am not specific with details on that. However, I will provide them to you tomorrow, because I'll get them out of Judge Vandekar's staff, and you will have them tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I think that's important to share with our general public about why we invest as we do in a difference of the dockets instead of just one specialty docket. I also want to talk about the certification of specialty docket, and I know that had been quite the conversation about the definition and defining specialty docket, so I applaud our efforts in getting forward with the certification, and that's a big leap, and I know you all are modest about it, but I know there was a lot of conversation about how we fall into that being regarded as a specialty docket, the standards. You have any numbers about the cost or impact of the financial impact of the certification for the court?
I don't have specific numbers on costs. I know that the court administration, as well as Judge Young, who now heads up our specialty docket committee, have worked long hours in contact with the Supreme Court. Excuse me. Judge Young, who heads up our specialty dockets committee, has worked, and our administrative staff has worked long hours in conjunction with the Supreme Court to tighten our programs up. As you know, they were begun a number of years ago with an idea from Judge Vandekar, modeled on some other things, and we've kind of built it as we went along. Now the idea is to spread across the state. The Supreme Court, to its credit, has decided that there needs to be consistent standards so that those who claim to be serving these special populations will meet those standards and will qualify. We're happy to step up to that. It has taken some work and effort, but I'm not prepared to tell you in dollars and cents how much that's cost us. I don't see us asking for any additional money from the city because the costs have generally been time and effort of our administrative staff and the judges who have worked on it. So I don't think there's going to be any immediate additional cost to the city resulting from meeting the certification standards. We look forward to meeting those standards, and we look forward to continuing to be proud of our specialty dockets.
And with that, in terms of impact of the certification, in managing the specialty docket, do you see any impact related to the certification in terms of how many folks were served, or any impacts as a relationship of the certification?
Yes, I do. I don't see any particular impact in the number of citizens that we serve. That's really, the limitations for that is going to be the available staff, both in terms of judicial and support staff, how many people they can handle through the programs. It ought not to be a thing where there's hundreds of people because it loses its effectiveness. And the important aspect of it is the staffing, where the person who is proposed to participate in one of the specialty dockets, a group of people from different disciplines, court employees as well as outsiders, go through that case for each person and determine whether or not the program is appropriate for them. And I'm sure there are some people who could benefit from it, but we cannot take everybody because it would overwhelm the program. So we're selective to that extent. But in terms of the administrative costs, I've seen our we're about to publish for approval new rules governing each of the dockets, and they're separately set forward even though they're consistent from one to the other. And there is going to be more administrative detail involved as a result of achieving the certification standards. But once again, it's my opinion that that additional cost is a cost in time that we will not need additional staff to govern that. We are now bringing to bear our court administration and linking it up with what has been pretty much an independent, freestanding operation that's run pretty much by Judge Herbert and Judge Vanderkar, and we're now going to kind of like regularize it so that our court administrator kind of has a handle on what's going on. But I don't think there will be any additional dollar cost to the city for meeting those standards and for bringing that under the authority of our administrators.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that we'll still be able to serve as many citizens as we can based on their eligibility to go through the specialty docket. I know, again, I'm glad that you shared what you did because the certification, as I understood it, is quite an undertaking, and it does have an impact on the day-to-day, but I'm glad that it will not reach our citizens, the impact. I also wanted to ask if you would repeat for me the annual fees related, the probationer fees, if you could repeat that number for me, please.
Yes, we had originally had charged a flat $40 per person as a probation user fee. In hardship cases, the courts had, the judges had the authority to waive that, but in most cases we opposed it. And Mr. Roth, who's our chief probation officer, came to us last year and said, you know, we're running short in some areas. We pay for remediation programs for some citizens who are on probation required to remediate but are unable to afford it. We have funds to do that. And he recommended that since some people are on probation for 6 months and some people are on probation for 3 years, that we change that structure and that we assess a per month cost based on the length that that person was going to be on probation. The court adopted that as a change to its practice. I still have the authority in an individual case to waive that if it's a hardship situation, but in most cases we're doing that, and we have generated additional revenue to help support those kind of remediation programs, the staffing that's necessary, and to pay the cost of some of those programs for people who couldn't otherwise afford them.
And for the listening audience and also for Councilmember Tyson, the discussion we had related to the amendment, waiting on additional information related to that amendment that I hope to receive soon. But certainly we will share that information and as we move forward to take a look at the possibility of the amendment. Thank you, Judge Barrows. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Mills. Thank you very much, Member Tyson.
And now I'll open the floor for questions for Councilmember Tyson. Don't leave, Judge Barrows.
Thank you, Chairwoman Mills. I just want just clarification of a couple things. You just mentioned that I think you got a $340,000 match from the county, and that supports the catch court. I mean, the specialty docket. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Additionally, and I don't know if it's true this year, we additionally had a smaller level of buy-in from the county prosecutor because our ADAP program removes some cases that would otherwise be felonies. If the person agrees to plead to a misdemeanor at the initial appearance, the county prosecutor is empowered in the right cases, and they're usually drug possession cases where there's an addiction problem, to refile a charge as a misdemeanor, accept a guilty plea, and then Judge Vanderkar, the ADAP docket, takes that person on for intensive rehabilitation. Instead of having the county go to the trouble of getting the lab fees from BCI, taking the case before the grand jury 3 or 4 months later, indicting them, and then prosecuting them through the regular general division of the Common Pleas Court, which frequently ends up a year and a half later in a plea to a misdemeanor charge and gets the person right back. So we've saved the county prosecutor as well as the county some of the time and money it would be involved in prosecuting those cases and gotten people immediately after their arrest into a remediation program. And if you know anything about the theories of criminal justice, the immediacy of the sanction to the wrongful act has a much greater impact than the severity of the sentence.
So my question...
does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Well, it answers my question about the money. I guess I just want to make sure that because you're getting $340,000 more dollars, that are you increasing the numbers of individuals that you're going to be able to be in these programs? Because you just mentioned a few minutes ago that certainly each program has, based upon the staffing and based upon just the work, you can only bring in, you can only work with so many individuals. So to get $340,000 more, do you have a capacity to be able to work with the additional individuals?
Councilmember Tyson, I may have been inartful in my presentation. That's a continuation. We got $340,000 from the city and from the county last year. We're looking for the same amount this year. So in short, if we get more efficient, we may be able to serve more people, but this is a continuation amount.
Question, and then the last one, I'm excited that Councilman Mills has asked for additional information regarding all the specialty dockets. I think that information will be very helpful to us as we continue to talk about the importance of those initiatives. And then the very last question, I know we have a lot of people to listen to this evening, was regarding the two things. One, remember the Alva's House and the Work Release Program, that you'll be saving $240,000, you said, on an annual basis with this program that we have presently. Is that correct?
That's our calculation, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so, and you just mentioned that right now that the Alva's House has 25 beds, and we're pretty much feeling that they're pretty much filled to capacity?
The Alva's House has many more than 25 beds. They have allocated 25 beds to the municipal court. They also house some federal prisoners there, and they also house some prisoners from the Court of Common Pleas. My understanding is that the Court of Common Pleas does not operate a work release program anymore, and I have questioned whether our misdemeanor convicts who we believe are trustworthy enough to go out and work should be housed in the same facility with federal prisoners and with felony prisoners, whether it's pre or post conviction. But I've been assured by our staff that there is safety. There have not been any reported incidences of problems. I'm somewhat saddened by the fact that we don't have more beds to use, because I think we could return more savings to the city if we did. I will say this, though, and I don't know, I can't speak for other judges. I have not had an experience when I've said I want this person to go to work release when I was informed that there wasn't enough bed space and we wouldn't be able to accommodate them. So it may be that the 25 beds that we're using now, even though they're generally filled, are sufficient.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony this evening. And lastly, thank you for initiating programs that are certainly bringing in additional dollars for you for those additional fees. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. I wanted to add one note in relationship to the specialty docket that I think is important. In the last 2 years of funding with the specialty docket court, there previously have been some dollars from the Adam Board that have decreased over time, and we stepped in last year and with the amendment to help fill in the gap with the understanding that the match from the county will remain. So we are glad that it's intact again. So thank you again, Judge Barrows. Thank you, Judge Barrows. Our next speaker this evening related to our judiciary budget includes Franklin County Municipal Court Clerk Lori Tayek. Welcome to council. Clerk Tayek, look forward to hearing about the much advanced work that I know has been going on, particularly related to technology and all those other good pieces that I know that you're moving on. So thank you, and welcome to council.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. Good evening to Council Member Mills and Tyson. So glad to see you today. And I'm here to make a presentation on behalf of the Franklin County Municipal Court Clerk's Office. It is the mission of the Franklin County Municipal Court Clerk's Office to accurately maintain, safeguard, and store all court documents, as well as collect and disperse all monies as directed by legal mandates. Our key goal is to process all cases and related actions within case-specific, legally mandated timeframes. Our strategic goal is to continue to find new ways to improve the operation of the Municipal Court Clerk's Office and to cultivate cooperation with other government agencies to better serve all who depend on the Clerk's Office for accurate record keeping. Our proposed budget for 2014 is $11,395,158. That includes $10,472,723 in personnel, $125,484 for materials and supplies, and $796,951 for services, again totaling $11,395,158. The clerk's office has decided to take a 2.0% vacancy credit in 2014 for a total projected savings of $215,684, or the equivalent of 4 employees. The Municipal Court Clerk's Office has submitted 2 unfunded program requests on Form E for your consideration. The first request is necessary due to the policy changes of the City of Columbus to charge the Municipal Court Clerk's Office for ongoing citywide training services. Professional development training is needed to assist in the retention of 162 highly valued staff members and ensure the continuation of the efficient and effective delivery of public service within the daily operations of the Municipal Court Clerk's Office. The second request is for the purpose of augmenting entry-level pay from $12.50 to $14 per hour. This change will allow the clerk's office to attract and retain qualified individuals, to remain competitive in the modestly improving economic environment, and to be in line with other comparable municipal court clerks in Ohio. The clerk's office is requesting an amendment to cover this amount for these unfunded programs in the amount of $89,786. In technology, the clerk's office IT staff actually maintains all of the equipment used by the clerks and the court as far as desktops and laptops and so forth. And that's over 400 pieces of equipment. We have upgraded all the desktop virtual machines to version 5. We've upgraded the firewalls to increase data security. We've ensured that all internal court view upgrades are current. This includes upgrading our integrated document imaging solution to OnBase for court view docket scanning, redesigning imaging batch scan workflow to integrate with court view, including a new inventory application utilizing the new Court View Express Update plugin and automated workflow within OnBase. We've also performed Microsoft Office 2013 upgrades for most of our users in the building. We relocated our database to a new storage SAN for better performance. We've built a training computer lab to better facilitate in-house training for staff. And in 2013, over 30 million page views occurred on our website. We do serve all of the users in our building, and over 6,000 internal help desk tickets were completed by my IT staff for both the clerk and the court. We have internal testing being conducted in the Court View e-filing module for a pilot project beginning in 2014. We've provided the United States Probation in the Southern District of Ohio with case file images through a secure portal online. Our collaborative efforts. The Franklin County Municipal Court Clerk's Office serves to bridge municipal and county initiatives by providing on-site support to collaborative law enforcement partners and other governmental agencies. Recently, our collaborative efforts were recognized by the Ohio Supreme Court in an online story entitled, "Municipal Court Clerk Assists with Game Day Enforcement." The Ohio Supreme Court reported that working with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office on the heightened enforcement called STOP are the Columbus and Ohio State Police Departments and the Ohio Department of Public Safety. A unique aspect to the effort is the Franklin County Municipal Court Clerk's mobile location on Lane Avenue, as Clerk of Court Lori Tyak and her staff work on site to process the 50 to 60 citations and arrests on an average game day. I would like to recognize and thank Chief Jacobs, CPD, Sheriff Scott, and Franklin County's Sheriff's Office for my participation, including us in the STOP program effort. Additionally, in 2013, the Municipal Court Clerk's Office has provided assistance during the following programs: Crime Stoppers, CPD, Vice Program, Operation Shield 3, and this year we worked with the Columbus Division of Police, Franklin County Sheriff's Office, the Ohio Highway Patrol, and the Ohio Department of Public Safety on Operation Shield 3. During the 2-day period of a program, the Clerk's Office provided 48 hours of continuing service to law enforcement. We participated in reversals that are used to identify persons who solicit prostitutes. We provided remote document sharing to federal probation officers for more effective research of our court records. And my imaging staff provided imaging services to the Franklin County Municipal Probation Department, allowing the entire department to become paperless. So we're very pleased to be able to work with them on that project. The success of these programs is a result of local, state, and federal government agencies working together to create a safer environment for all. In May of this year, 2 representatives from the National Center for State Courts and the Bureau of Identification and Investigation visited my office to view our process of capturing digital fingerprints of those defendants charged with reportable misdemeanors. I'm pleased to announce, based on the success of our program, NCSC and BCI and I are modeling a statewide fingerprint capturing initiative for other clerks' offices. I would like to thank Councilmember Mills, Deputy Director Speaks, Chief Jacobs, and with the Columbus Division of Police and her staff for their assistance in making this program possible. The Municipal Court Clerk's Office follows green initiatives set by the City of Columbus and Franklin County by continuing daily recycling initiatives. The Clerk's Office has received over $18 million through our online electronic payment program since April of 2010. The Daily Paper Recycling Initiative has saved 541 trees since January of this year. The Clerk's Office routinely chooses environmentally preferable procurement, such as purchasing recycled paper for copies, file folders, and refurbished toner cartridges for printers. The following strategic priorities will be the focus of the 2014 budget cycle. The objective of these priorities is to save valuable taxpayer dollars and better utilize staff resources. Last year, my office commissioned a feasibility study to determine steps necessary to create an electronic filing system. In 2014, my office will be piloting an electronic filing system program for environmental court civil cases using our current case management vendor, CourtView. A further expansion of electronic filing for all civil filings will be a strategic priority for late 2014. Additionally, in early 2014, a statewide electronic ticket pilot project will be implemented through the Ohio Traffic Records Coordinating Committee. This pilot project will include the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, the Columbus Division of Police, and the Municipal Court Clerk's Office. Electronic ticket software has been designed for use by the Ohio Highway Patrol and will be adapted for local law enforcement agencies. Federal and state grant funds will support this effort. So we're pleased to be part of that initiative. We expect to build on our time payment program and continue the development of a web-based time payment program to allow individuals to establish, maintain, and monitor their time payments online. We're working towards eliminating the creation of minor misdemeanor folders, which total several thousand case folders, by utilizing the electronic signature technology. And lastly, the court's assigned files have been relocated from the 9th floor court assignment office to the clerk's criminal and civil floors for more efficient management of case files. As clerk of the Franklin County Municipal Court, it is my goal to assist and encourage individuals to take positive steps to resolve their cases while reducing the burden on the criminal justice system. The Franklin County Court Clerk's Office will continue to create and implement innovative ideas that will provide operational efficiencies while saving valuable taxpayer dollars. I would like to personally thank Director Paul Rakowski, Melvin Slusher, and Jeannie Sprague for their assistance in finalizing the 2014 budget for the Clerk's Office. Thank you so much, and I welcome any questions.
I'll yield the floor to Councilmember Tyson for questions. I'll save my questions and summary for the end. Councilmember Tyson.
The only question I would ask is, could you just share a little bit more about first of all, I want to say congratulations on all the accomplishments that your department and your team have accomplished this year. Could you just share a little bit about your web-based garnishment management initiative that you'll be working on in 2014?
Garnishments are a large portion of what we do in the civil department, and one of the issues that we have is we're still keeping track of all the payments and the amounts due by hand. So we're looking at building in-house a garnishment system that will allow people to pay online with a credit card or an ACH transaction from their bank account to our bank account, and that would allow us not only to speed up the time the garnishment is dispersed from the employer to that person who the garnishor, but also would allow the garnishees to go online and see how much more they owe and how much time they'll have to pay.
I don't have any other questions because I believe Councilmember Mills is probably going to ask you about your unfunded programs. And so I will defer to her to ask you about those programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. You are correct. However, fortunately, we, myself and Clerk Tyack, spend a great bit of time together updating and staying abreast. So I've been briefed very thoroughly on those unfunded initiatives and have understood the need related to them and the difference that it would make. I'm glad that you, Councilmember Tyson raised a question about the web-based garnishment because I want to talk about the benefit of all this technology, not just being on those who find themselves engaged with the clerk's office, but also from an employer standpoint in processing things like garnishments. This technology creates a time savings and resource and capacity savings for a lot of business and those who are charged with that. And through some decisions with some employers related to their personnel policies in terms of terminations and things related to garnishments, perhaps this will help with those decisions related to terminations of those who are garnished. So I think the reach and the benefit of a lot of the accomplishments of the court, certainly under your leadership, will benefit a widespread than just those who are immediately interacting with the clerk's office. So thank you very much. We will hear more in relationship to the unfunded proposals that are in front of us. And again, I think the briefing has been thorough, and I really want to thank Clerk Tyatt for always keeping me updated, regular reports as we go forward, budget changes both in favor and not. Your patience and diligence to move some of this technology forward is to be commended. The hand tracking that I've witnessed and seen in visiting your office certainly tells me that there's probably a lot of happy people on your team related to a lot of these changes. I'm glad to see the stability is there in terms of the infrastructure so this technology can be used daily and can benefit the folks on your team so they can count on it. So thank you again, Clerk Tyack, and I look forward to getting more information and speaking with you soon regarding those amendments.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, before I could call up the illustrious team of the City Attorney's Office, let me allow just to introduce our Columbus City Attorney, Richard C. Pfeiffer Jr., and his very brilliant and bright team to share with us the budget for the City Attorney's Office. City Attorney Pfeiffer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Mills, Chair Tyson. Good evening. I am Rick Pfeiffer. I am the Columbus City Attorney. I am finishing my 11th year as City Attorney. And tonight we are going to present our proposed budget for 2014. I first would like to thank Director Rakowski and Teresa Wenzel, who is our assigned fiscal person. We've cooperated, worked with them, and the budget we are presenting with you tonight does not request any amendments of any sort. By overview, you know what the City Attorney's Office does. We're the lawyer for the city. We prosecute criminal misdemeanor offenses in municipal court. We defend the city when it's sued. We advise you as to the form of your legislation, not as to your policy. That's your call. We do arbitrations with our various labor unions. We have a litigation department that defends the big, heavy suits, the 1983 lawsuits. We have a claims division which collects unpaid taxes, and also if we are responsible for some kind of damage, they make sure we get paid. So that's the overview. The next slide will show you historically what we have requested. Now, bottom line for this year is we're asking for $11,723,440 in the general fund. Now, if you look at when I became city attorney in 2003, our number was just over $10 million. We went through some tough times in 04 and 05, and we really cut back. But basically what you see now after my 11th year is an office that's remained pretty much constant in what it in its size and its scope. So this document, this page, this slide, is an attempt to show you historically where we've been. The next slide will show you that the sources of funding. Now, while we have the general fund budget, there are other funds that we receive that we spend. So for the general fund, you can see we're going to have $11,525,000. Our real estate general fund, which is kind of odd, I thought, we have by ordinance a chief real estate officer. So general funds are allocated to that division, which is in addition to the general funds we just showed you. So in addition, we have what we call a land acquisition. When our real estate division acquires property interest when we do roads or sewers, our lawyers charge back to the departments that service. So the monies you see there in $765,000 really come from the monies that are being spent for those projects. We also receive some fees and grants. The grant total is very important. It's $304,000. Without that grant money, we would not be employing some of the important people in our domestic violence stalking unit. So in sum, we propose to spend $12,800,000 plus this year that will support a table of organization of 120 people, full-time. Part-time will be 37. Of the 120, 63 are attorneys. So that gives you a sense of our table of organization. And if you want to have a microscope or anyway, if you have glasses, you might be able to figure out our table of organization. But we just show it to you to say, there we are, there we are. So thank you. The next, we now try to break out where this money is being spent within our office. Bill Hedrick is our chief of staff, and this is our administration section. And you can see what we're spending there. The administration section basically is our technology people. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce Bill Hedrick, Linda Helms. Bill Hedrick's our chief of staff. Linda Helms, our fiscal officer. And Mark Rutkus is here, who does a lot of internal work, and he is responsible for our PowerPoint tonight. But the administration section does what we normally do. You'll see we have legal secretaries. They don't work exclusively for the administration section. They work for various elements in our civil division, but for purposes of budgeting, we show them in this section. If you don't go to the next page, Josh Cox is our chief counsel, and he is a very important person. This is the catch-all. When we talk about legislation, when we talk about contracts, they review all the contracts. Josh Cox is our go-to guy when there are questions about where we stand on certain legal issues, and we rely on Josh Cox quite well. So that gives you an overview of what we're doing there, and you can read that the number of contracts they reviewed and the ordinances they reviewed. You folks have about 1,800 ordinances last year that were reviewed by our general counsel section. Litigation section, headed up by Glenn Reddick. This is a very important section, obviously, because when the city gets sued, alleging that our employees have done something wrong, and quite frankly, our division of police is one of our biggest clients in that regard, we defend the city. And if you look at it, we had a total of 56 cases we closed. And a year that cost the city about $1.8 million, which is about typical for any year in terms of payouts. But the plaintiffs were asking for $71 million. It's our job to represent the city, and we do the best we can. Our concern comes when we have what we call these 1983 lawsuits. Now, 1983 is not a year. It's a section of the United States Code, Title 42, Section 1983, which says that if an employee under the color of law deprives an individual of his or her constitutional statutory rights in the federal law, and they prevail at trial, we then have to pay the attorney fees. So while, I think I said this to you before, but I'll say it again. About 3 years ago, we had a case, we went to trial in federal court. And the jury came back with an award for the plaintiff of $9,000, finding that our officers did something they should not have done. But then I had to come to you and ask for $90,000 to pay the lawyer. Now, the jury does not know that whatever award they give the plaintiff, the losing party, the city, has to come up with the attorney's fees. So when you evaluate those 1983 cases, you say, well, what's the probability of success? Well, it could be 50-50. And you say, yeah, but are you willing to make that risk, knowing that if you lose, you could be looking at significant damages plus significant attorney fees? So we try to work closely with our clients and understand what that's all about, because you want to work with harmony in your clients to get them to believe we're doing what's right for them. The next area would be the labor and employment section. That's headed up by Pam Gordon. Again, this is our section and its employees that basically do the represent the city in arbitrations with our labor unions when there is a grievance or it's an arbitration. And you can see there the number of employees and the costs that that section generates. Claims Division is Nancy Weidman. This is the section which, as I said, if people haven't basically paid their their city income tax, we try to collect it. We have 2 outside collection agencies. And if you go to the next slide, I think you can see pretty well graphically the success we've had over the years in being very productive in the collection of debts owed the city. Now, again, this section also listens to folks who say, your trash truck hit us, now you owe something. Your folks put a pole where it shouldn't be, so we also recognize we will pay out for certain things that we're liable for, and that's handled through our claims section, unless we get a lawsuit, and then it's handled mostly by our litigation section. Trial staff, Prosecution Division. Laura Baker-Moorish is our chief prosecutor. It's down at Franklin County Municipal Court, and you can see that's where we have a significant number of employees. We handle about 130 misdemeanor cases, traffic and misdemeanor cases a year. Now, some people will say the municipal court, the Franklin County Municipal Court, is the busiest court in Ohio. Now, I really don't know how you figure that, so I don't say it. I can just tell you it's a busy court, and there's a lot of work. You have been down there. When you first encounter the court, it seems like, does anybody know what's going on? It seems chaotic. People know what's going on down there, but it's a high-volume, very intense court, and we have our lawyers down there. On the average, a trial attorney in a courtroom carries about 104 cases, so it's quite a bit. Now, what happens in municipal court? A lot of plea bargaining goes on in municipal court. On the average, a judge will have about 12 jury trials a year, so you don't see that many jury trials as you would over in common pleas court. So the key to our success in that court is good preparation by our attorneys, but they got a pretty big caseload. In the prosecution division is the Domestic Violence and Stalking Unit, which is headed by Annie Murray. If you look at how we spend our money, the single largest expenditure is in domestic violence and stalking. We have 4 dedicated prosecutors who exclusively do domestic violence cases, although all trial attorneys could do it. They do the problematic cases. We represent, if you look at the numbers, we probably served over 6,000 victims of domestic violence last year, dealing with about 1,500 domestic violence cases. A very significant area we deal with. Our chief of police recently met with a lot of folks in her office trying to figure out, are we properly focused on getting the evidence we need in stalking? So we're very encouraged by the cooperation we're getting from the law enforcement in trying to make sure we deal effectively with victims of domestic violence and hold the offenders accountable for what they do. Also within the prosecutor division is our appellate section, which is Melanie Tobias. The appellate section, when cases are appealed from municipal court to the 10th district, Ms. Tobias' section handles it. Her section also handles our clerks, and our clerks are in traffic court arraignment doing a lot of things down there. And what we try to do in traffic court, if we can resolve cases early in the arraignment process and not have to have them go upstairs to the court, we can save money. So our goal is to resolve cases as early as we can so that the system upstairs, traffic court's on the first floor, upstairs means floors 12, 13, 14, and 15 of the municipal court. So we have a lot of good hard work going down in the arraignment courtroom. We also have a section called the Prosecution Resources Unit, fancy name. Here's what that basically does. Citizen believes he or she is the victim of a crime. Sometimes the police will take a report but say, now you got to go down to the 7th floor of 375. So we have an intake section where people, again, who believe they are victims of crime come, and we have people listen to what they think they have been offended, how the crime might be. 80% of the people who come down there do not find that we file charges. And sometimes we have very unhappy people. But we will not file a charge unless we believe there is sufficient evidence to have probable cause as a crime is committed and we have a likelihood of success. I mean, when you put somebody in harm's way, when you charge somebody with a crime, it's a serious matter. So we look at our prosecutorial responsibilities very carefully as to whether or not a charge is necessary. So you can see by the, and also that section runs a mediation program. That section also is responsible to try to deal with checks that have bounced, and we think it's been pretty successful. Now, checks that have bounced, fewer people are writing checks. And I suspect within the next 2 years, that probably is something that will disappear from our workload. Police Legal Bureau. Very proud of our Police Legal Bureau. 2 attorneys, and I'll call their names, Jeff Furby and Steve Dunbar. They're over on the 8th floor of the police headquarters. They are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to answer questions from our police officers. They provide in-service training for the 1,800 sworn officers. They provide the legal training for the new recruit classes. And about a year and a half or 2 years ago, we started to develop these two and a half, 3-minute videos on key legal issues that each police officer should know. So through the chief of police office, every officer is supposed to view each of those videos. And I think it's very helpful because our goal is training, training, training to make sure that our police, in enforcing the law, know how to precisely follow the law. So I'm very pleased with, I think we're very proud of our Police Legal Bureau. In that regard, now you say, okay, so you're doing that for the police. What are you doing for the fire? And I notice we have some significant people from the Division of Fire here. Well, we've always had one attorney, but this last year we hired an additional attorney, Mike Halloran. Mike Halloran is a lawyer, but he is also a firefighter and a paramedic. And so we're beefing up assistance to the Division of Fire in terms of training and things like that. We're trying to figure out whether we can do videos. So working with Chief Paxton and others at that department, we're looking very closely at how our office can provide current training to our firefighters. Not to forget the Division of Fire. Again, if you look at the next chart, you can see the various things that the Police Legal Bureau does. And then if we move to the zone initiative, Police Department, the Division of Police has Columbus divided to 5 zones. If you switch to the next slide, you can see that what they are. An attorney is assigned to each one of those zones. And that attorney's responsibility is to visit the roll calls, to go out to community meetings, to deal with code enforcement, police, health department, to listen to the neighborhoods as to what the problems are and whether or not we have the capacity as lawyers and using the legal system and the court to solve them. In that regard, we work very close with code on abandoned vacant housing. Now, let me say this. We have a new director of the Department of Development, Mr. Schoening. We have a new director in the Department of Building and Zoning Services, and we have a new environmental judge. We are in the process now of working with now the judge is independent. We just want a fair judge. But he's aware, and you've heard the court's request for some additional resources, where we are encouraged by what we see as the vigor of the principal actors in this area. But I don't think anybody should walk away and say, oh, we're going to clean up all our neighborhoods overnight. We're not. We're still going to struggle with how we deal effectively with the older built environment neighborhoods where decay has happened over years, and we're trying to do it without spending public money but private money. So we feel very good about what we see as people's focus. You can see the mayor is going to ask for 8 more code officers. So we're encouraged in that way, and hopefully we can report back to you our progress. The next slide gives you some numbers as to what our zone people did, and I think you can see those for yourself. Lastly, we have the real estate division headed up by the city's chief real estate official, which is John Klein. What does the real estate division do? When the city has these projects, whether it's tunneling under the Scioto River or building roads, we acquire the real estate interest, and that's what these folks do. So that's our presentation. But if I might, before you ask questions, I want to bring up 2 subjects. You heard Clerk Tyak talk about her technology and e-filing. There's going to be a big meeting on December of next week sometime. But the clerk's office is going to be there, the court's going to be there, and we're going to be there, and Paul Rakowski's going to be there. Our chief prosecutor says that other law enforcement people in our jurisdiction, the county prosecutor, the sheriff, are going to some kind of software that we need to get up to speed on. And so Director Rakowski says, wait a minute, you guys are asking for all this money, so there's going to be a big meeting to figure out whether it's what we can do. If we are convincing that we need something, you're going to hear this later on, it's probably going to be out of capital funds, not out of general funds. So that's number 1. Number 2, let me talk about the municipal court building. And I was hoping that Judge Barrows might say something. The municipal court building was built in 1979. I was a judge down there, and I can tell you the building was poorly built. Now the city is, and now the city is involved. It's really going to become the city's. There is significant concern on our part and the court's part, and we're working with Director Rakowski, about how the planning is going to do that renovation. Because we're hearing that it's going to be done over several years, which means we now have all these people in that court functioning well, but they need to vacate certain floors. So there's initial talk of, well, we'll move the prosecutors out of there and send them to some other building. And so I just want to alert you to the fact that we are going to have some serious discussions with finance and management, and Director Rakowski is aware of this, as to just what are you planning for that municipal court. I assume you've heard from the judges by now. If not, I'm disappointed, because there are some serious concerns. That's our presentation. Thank you.
I'll yield the floor to Councilmember Tyson to ask her questions first.
I don't have any questions. I think that you mentioned, or maybe I have this in front of me, that there was you have an assistant city attorney for a community zone program added to this year's budget. Is that correct?
There is one more lawyer. Yes, ma'am.
You want to add? You have one additional person
Yes, right.
on your
It's
team.
in the budget. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. I think you've been very thorough. It's a continuation budget, pretty much, except
Yes.
for getting another attorney.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney, I have, again, no questions, as Councilmember Tyson does as well. And yes, I have heard from the judges in relationship to this. I think this will be quite an undertaking. So it is, as you suspected, not a surprise to me about the challenges, and also hearing from everyone who will be housed in that facility as well. So it is not a surprise to me, but it will be something that needs some continued discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, in tonight's hearing, we will hear from the Columbus Department of Public Safety. Unfortunately, Director Brown could not be with us this evening. We will hear from Deputy Director Dan Giangardella. I want to remind everyone, if they have any comments or questions or would like to speak tonight related to the final portion of tonight's hearing, public safety, to please find a speaker slip at the entrance of chambers, complete that speaker slip, and my legislative assistant behind me, Devin Perros, can collect those. Welcome to council, and I believe you have been up to speed. Director Brown and I have been on the phone to make sure that tonight is informative and educating everyone related to this year's budget for public safety. If you will begin shortly after I introduce both Chief Jacobs and Chief Paxton, who are with us this evening, and I'm sure they'll be on hand as well to support and provide any answers to questions that may arise this evening. But I have full confidence that Deputy Director Giangardella will get through tonight's hearing, informing our public of the public safety budget. Deputy Director Dan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Safety Chair Mills, Finance Chair Tyson, good evening. We may be last on the agenda tonight, but by way of the budget, we're certainly not the least, as you well know. Before we continue with some budget specifics, Public Safety would like to thank Mayor Coleman, Auditor Dorian, certainly the citizens of Columbus for their support. We appreciate the budget that has been proposed for public safety, as it still continues to represent Mayor Coleman's top priority, is shown by the receipt of approximately 70% of the proposed general fund budget. You had mentioned, obviously, Chief Jacobs, Chief Paxton, both here this evening. We also have some members of our fiscal staff who prepared the budget with us this evening as well. The term public safety is rather simplistic, yet what our employees do really goes far beyond that. They provide quality service, dependable service to the citizens of Columbus by maintaining safe neighborhoods and working cooperatively with citizens to minimize injury, death, and property destruction. This is accomplished by managing the resources of each of the divisions in our department. Let me share with you a few things, what public safety did with its budget in 2012, which was the most recent year for which we have some annual figures. In the Division of Fire, we responded to 150,000 calls for service, or an average about 13 calls for each of our 32 stations. For police, we responded to 645,000 calls for service, or an average of just over 1,760 calls per day, which would equate to something on the order of about 70 calls per hour, or for this meeting, we might be up to 200 by the time we're done here this evening. Both police in Columbus have received national recognition through independent accreditation process, and both continue to be leaders in their field. Some other accomplishments, and these would be for this year and what we've done with our budget. We renovated and moved the police property room. We've installed 14 additional emergency sirens with the help of the Franklin County Emergency Management Association. We've upgraded our call center equipment to make ready for next generation 911 call taking. We began construction of a new fire station on Greenlawn Avenue. We began construction of a new crime lab on Woodrow Avenue. We replaced all, or in the process of replacing all of our tasers, thanks to council and finance. We've updated our codes for vehicle for hire and new pedicabs. Again, Councilmember Mills, this was a big initiative of yours, and we owe a lot of your help to that. And then finally, we civilianized 8 positions in our police division so far this year. The 2014 budget for safety totals approximately $533 million. That's over $500 million, of which a majority of that comes from the general fund, or almost $530 million. We have about $4 million in other funds, such as our 911 fund and our photo red light revenues. Altogether, this represents about a 1.3% increase in our budget for 2013. The budget allocates just under $300 million for police, $221 million for fire, $7.2 for support services, $8.3 for safety administration. As far as personnel in 2014, in our police division, we expect to lose about 70 officers through our normal attrition and about 40 firefighters. A like number of police officers and firefighters will be hired next year to maintain our staffing levels in police to be about 1,900, and for fire, about 1,550 firefighters. In police, we will have 2 recruit classes of 35 each, 1 in June and 1 in December, respectively. And in the fire division, we will have a class of 40 recruits in June of 2014. Some other significant funding items in our budget as proposed for 2014 include our jail contract at $5.2 million. I would point out this is the same amount as 2013, and you heard Judge Barrows speak to the initiatives that the city has worked with the judges on that, and that has helped keep that jail contract in check really the last several years. We have $200,000 allocated for civilianization efforts in our fire division. We have $437,000 proposed for 9 additional crime lab positions to do police work. We're talking forensic scientists here that will work on drug identification and DNA analysis. A lot of that is in hopes of opening our new crime lab later this year to get those people hired and begin the training process for them. We have proposed 30 communication technicians for $675,000 to prepare for civilianization our fire alarm office. This is more of a down payment. This is not a final number. There will still be greater needs as we move forward in that civilianization in 2015. $400,000 for community crime patrol. $50,000 for the Mayor's Coalition Nonviolent Grant Program. $35,500 for Crime Stoppers. $219,000 for the Capital Area Humane Society. These are all pretty much consistent with what we did in 2013. Our truancy program funded at $75,000 from general fund and $50,000 from our drug seizure fund from police. Our EMS billing contract and fire, which costs us next year about $1.8 million, of which we get about $15.3 million in revenue from. Minority recruitment budgeted $100,000, which is a significant increase over our 2013 number, and a continuation of our mayoral strike force in the police division at $725,000. We don't talk much about our support services division, but we do have 58 civilians that work in that division who are responsible for our 800 megahertz radio system, our CAD system, communications, weights and measures, licensing. So they obviously provide a significant service to the citizens as well. They're just not as prominent perhaps as our uniformed divisions. With respect to vehicles, obviously each year for the last several years, we have worked with the Fleet Management Division to determine a replacement schedule for cruisers and unmarked vehicles and other general fund light vehicles. In 2013, we'll have 79 cruisers enter the fleet, 20 personal transport vehicles, and dozens of unmarked vehicles for police. And of course, most of our fire apparatus is funded out of our capital fund. We have presently on order 8 medics, 2 ladders, 2 engines, 2 rescue support units, and 7 rescue boats. We also have, I think, some K-9 units that are coming in as well for fire this year. Some other major initiatives for 2014. Obviously, we're always mindful of our overtime budgets in our divisions. I'm pleased to report for the second year in a row, both police and fire are living within their respective overtime budgets. Obviously, we talked a little bit about civilianization efforts that we did this year in police. We have about a half a dozen positions we're looking at in fire for next year. And we're always looking at, obviously, the most effective way to deploy our personnel in each of our respective divisions, use technologies, whether it's safety cameras, photo red light, our CAD systems, our scrap metal and pawn shop software. And obviously, we are also implementing a new time and attendance system this year in the police division to improve operations there. And of course, we're always looking to continue to upgrade our vehicles, which are very important to us. In closing, Public Safety appreciates the budget that has been suggested for us for 2014, and we appreciate the generous support of the community and City Council. I thank you for your time, and we are here to answer any questions you might have about our budget.
Thank you, Deputy Director. I will again yield the floor to Councilmember Tyson for her questions first, as I have a long list, so I'll allow for questions from Councilmember Tyson first.
Thank you, Chairwoman Mills. First, I want to compliment you on maintaining the overtime. I know that at each of the quarterly hearings that I have with the Finance Director, Paul Rakowski, we've certainly looked at the overtime. What's been in the past certainly has been a little more elevated, but certainly under leadership of both of the chiefs, I want to just say thank you that you've been managing overtime, and I know it's one of the goals moving forward. I also want to say thank you to the administration for some of the council amendments that Councilmember Mills put in the budget last year are now part of the base budget. I know that the 2 licensed officers and, of course, the police recruit class and the police officer assistant. The question that I have is really around, I know the minority recruitment's getting an increase in your budget, and maybe you could just share a little bit about what we're going to be doing differently in regards to minority recruitment.
Chair Tyson, Chair Mills, I guess I'll begin addressing that, and then I'll allow the chiefs to speak if they would like to do so on this. Obviously, this is the year where there will be testing given by civil coming up, 2014, there'll be testing by civil service. So obviously we'll have a significant media campaign that we will need to roll out in our communities to recruit individuals to apply for those exams. We are looking at the potential of some public relations, perhaps a public relations program, someone to help us with marketing to attract minority and female recruits. We are looking at some additional web design. We're looking at, obviously, some camp programs with recreation and parks as more of a long-term strategy to recruit youth in our community. And I think what we found out in looking at this over the last 9 months is we really sort of need a short-term and a long-term strategy. We need a short-term because we have tests coming up, or at least filing periods coming up in 2014. But the longer term, I think we need to to have a strategy to reach individuals that perhaps in the past may not have thought about a career as a police officer or firefighter. So one of the initiatives there, as I mentioned, will be a camp where both police and fire have been working with Recreation and Parks to craft a program that will be launched this spring. So there are a variety of things we're looking at, and obviously this is a very important initiative for the mayor, a very important initiative for council and the director as well.
Thank you for sharing, and you're absolutely right. We need a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy. And I just know from being at civil service I was there for 13 years, and know that this has been an ongoing issue about recruiting of minorities, whether they be racial minorities, more women. I mean, we just need to make sure that we have a diverse police and fire divisions. And so I think that thinking of it and on the long term is that this camp, I think, would be absolutely great. I think we have to do more career exploration, which is what this is really about, to begin to showcase the great opportunities that we have in police and fire. These are wonderful positions. And to be able to be a police person or a firefighter and to be in public service are wonderful positions. I just don't think young people think about them in the way that us, the people that are sitting up here, that we think about these positions. And so I think that you are right on in trying to develop young people, giving them an opportunity to be able to be with police and fire and individuals, and to begin to see what a great career that they can have within this. So thank you for thinking about it in a couple ways. Lastly, I noticed that in this budget you're going to have some forensic scientists. And could you just speak a little bit about that and the importance of those forensic scientists?
Chair Tyson, Chair Mills, forensic scientists are really becoming sort of the backbone of analyzing a lot of our crime information that we have. I wish it were like what we see on television with CSI, where you have the results in 1 hour by highly trained and skilled individuals. Unfortunately, the reality is it's a lot of hard work to gather this evidence. It is a significant amount of time to analyze it and be right with what we have, and then to be able to provide that information to police, and so that we can prosecute the individuals that need to be. I mentioned our crime lab. We are in the process of renovating that. That was a capital item this year that the council was gracious enough to help fund for us. That renovation is ongoing. We anticipate before the end of this year probably moving in for that facility or being very close to moving in. These 9 positions will tremendously help us with our casework. And one of the limitations we had at the existing facility, frankly, was space. We're going from about 6,000 square feet to around 32,000. So we had some real limitations on, even if we were able to hire forensic scientists, and that in itself is not an easy task. But now that we'll have space to put them in, we will be able to turn around evidence much quicker. And like most cities, there is some backlog, and we're going to be able to tackle that as well. But it does take some time to get these individuals up and trained to the point where they are certified to be able to testify in a court of law to the evidence that they've looked at.
That's all I have. Thank you, Chairwoman Mills.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Deputy Director, I will start with my questions and no particular order. And please, I ask both Chief Jacobs and Chief Paxton to offer their comments where they see fit. My first question is, as you talked about the investments that we've made, both not only in the general fund and operations of the safety divisions, but also in terms of capital related to apparatus and equipment. Can you talk a little bit about what that impact of that investment has had in terms of our safety record of the individuals within the Division of Fire and Division of Police?
Chair Mills and Chair Tyson, obviously, we're a large division, significant dollars. We have great needs, and the mayor and council have been very generous with their support within both of our police and fire divisions. We talk oftentimes about personnel, and certainly personnel is the largest part of our budget, but you're absolutely right. Infrastructure and vehicles and things are just as important. Some years ago, we had some significant issues with fire apparatus, and we were fortunate over the last several years to have made significant strides, putting $6 million a year investment going back probably about 7 years now in apparatus, and we're to the point where obviously we're seeing positive reflection on our vehicle downtime. Our frontline vehicles are tremendously improved in terms of how new they are. You know, as for instance, you know, we put 5 new heavy rescues in this year. I think we had about 14 medics, and obviously we're continuing with that program with what we already have on order and what we're going to continue to do, and hopefully as we look forward to the 2014 capital budget. We are, you know, we're building a fire station, obviously on Green Lawn. That is important to us. It's long overdue. That's going to give us some flexibility, and then of course our intent will be to go back on Fulton Street and build a station there as well. With police, likewise, you know, cruisers, we could have a lot of personnel, but if we can't get them out there in the community, it makes it a little bit difficult for us. You know, we have gotten a lot of the older vehicles out of the fleet. There are some challenges, frankly, with new cruisers. Manufacturers are not building the large sedans like they used to. You know, we are working with police and fleet management to look at, you know, what is the proper vehicle that not only is a safe environment for our officers to work in, but you know, allows them to get their job done at the same time. So that's an ongoing issue that over the next several months into next year we'll be taking a look at. The investment in the personal transport vehicles, the ones we have, I think are approaching 5 and 6 years old. That was a significant, these will be a significant improvement for us. They were badly needed, so that's a good thing. And these all permit our firefighters and officers who are out there in all weather conditions, obviously working under extreme stress to be able to do their jobs more effectively. Again, you know, we certainly have challenges. We would like to have some improvement in our facilities. We work hard every day to do that. But we have 70 buildings out there, 70 facilities right now that between police and fire. So that's a challenge, but we work closely with construction management and finance to be able to keep them in an operating condition.
If I could ask the two chiefs to add some commentary related to the safety of the members within both divisions over this past year, if you could add some commentary there, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Mills and Chair Tyson. With regard to our vehicles?
No, the officers themselves and their safety. Again, we make these investments in terms of tools and equipment so that they can remain safe while protecting our citizens, but I think it is important to talk about the great safety record that we have, and I would like some commentary related to that in both divisions.
Thank you. I'd be glad to talk about that. In fact, we just finished up our in-service training for this year, which discussed self-aid and buddy aid, the use of tourniquets, the use of direct pressure with regard to wounds, lacerations, and things like that. That was one of the most well-received trainings that we've done in quite a long time. We continue to look at driver's training as well to protect our officers when they're on that street 8 hours a day, 24 hours a day as well. So we continue to look for training opportunities to better remind them of how to be safe and how to take care. In addition to the first aid training, we did scenario training, which is the best kind of training because we put them into a scenario that they can actually, you know, believe would happen out on the street and how to respond to that appropriately, not just in an armed confrontation, but also in a confrontation that you don't know which way it's going to go and how to make the best decision to not only provide for your own safety, but the safety of the citizens and everybody else around you. So we use training as one of the greatest tools to ensure the safety of our personnel. We track our injuries during training so that we know what's happening and to monitor whether or not we are causing some of the things that we're trying to train in are causing injuries, and be able to more effectively train without causing injuries to our own personnel. With regard to the vehicles that we do use, the new PTVs will go a long ways towards making our officers safer. They're a good size. They will, fit down our kind of skinny streets better. So we should be able to drive more carefully and safely through the city streets just because of the type of vehicles that we're going to. However, as the director said, the size of the sedans that we're getting nowadays are quite small in comparison to the vehicle size that we've had for many, many years. I myself, as an officer, was given a Ford Fairmont to drive, and it was so small that we couldn't put a screen between the front seat and the back seat, and I ended up getting kicked in the face because of the smallness of that vehicle. We tried to save some money by going to a small vehicle back then, and it was ineffective, and it did lead to injuries. So we are continuing to look with Fleet at a vehicle that will suit our needs and keep our officers safe, not only in the front seat as they are driving, but also when they're loading prisoners into the back seat, which is necessarily cramped because of the screens that we do have to put in. But our safety record is good. Our officers are trained to make sure that they use force in the right way, but also to make sure that they understand when they're allowed to use it to protect themselves. So I believe that we're doing quite a good job in using the resources that are available to us with regard to equipment and with regard to training to ensure that that continues to happen.
Thank you. Chief Paxton, please.
Good evening, Chairs Tyson and Mills. Fire takes safety very seriously. We have officers dedicated to safety and health and wellness concerns. Specifically, what we have been doing is dealing with the issues of ergonomics, which is how you do things, basically. Many of our injuries come from lifting people. So we've had training on how to lift and move people during this year. We have revamped the review of our Fleet Accident Committee so as to get a better handle of what type of problems we have with our fleet accidents in order to structure training to deal with that. And in that same vein, we have applied for a number of grants for driving simulators, which works for us because we have these giant trucks that go down fairly narrow streets. We do track our injuries, and I'm happy to say that this year our injury and lost hours are down. So we are planning our health and wellness program based on data that we receive on injuries and the type of accidents we are in. So basically what we are trying to do in fire is to use data to drive our decision-making and our policy-making.
Is that it? I don't want to cut you off.
Okay. That's plenty.
Okay, thank you, Chief Paxton. Deputy Director, I will return to you for a couple questions as we talk about the size of the budget for safety in relationship to the other departments and necessary services for our citizens. Want to talk a little bit about if you or either of the chiefs can provide some additional data. I saw the run numbers and response numbers and all of that, but if we can talk some safety numbers that if you can, if you're prepared to do that this evening, related to how we invest, obviously, to make sure that we're protecting the community, what our rates look like in terms of crime and those stats. If you can provide some commentary related to that, I appreciate it.
Chairperson Mills, Tyson, I don't have any crime stats immediately available to me tonight. Certainly we can get those to you. I can tell you, though, and the chief can certainly verify my comments. In terms of our murder rate this year, we are tracking, I believe, pretty close to where we were last year at this time, which I want to say is right around 90. Obviously, we'd like to see that go down every year, but that is fair. That number is fairly consistent, I guess, unfortunately, with where we've been in the past. But right now, I think we're right around 90, which is very close to where we were last year at this time. Overall trends, and I think whether it's Columbus, even across the country, trends for most major violent crimes have been trending down a little, and obviously we're pleased with that. One of the issues I think we have in Columbus, in any city that economically is doing pretty well, and I think most of us would agree that Columbus, certainly in Ohio, is doing very well economically. We tend to see property crimes because, unfortunately, individuals get a little bit careless with their electronic devices in their property. And I think we consistently and constantly want to remind people, don't leave things visible in your cars, don't leave your laptops and your phones and your expensive gear. And I think sometimes we just a little bit lax. But property crimes are always a challenge, I think, for any large community. But there's a lot of things we could do as citizens to help mitigate some of that. I would like to add, just on the safety front, your allocation of TASER money for us, obviously, is a safety component. It helps us. You heard City Attorney Pfeiffer talk about claims, and certainly by the nature of what police does, we do have some, certainly. But TASERs, I think the chief would verify this, are a way for us to gain control of situations when we don't have to use deadly force, and that saves us a lot. Not only saves lives, but it saves from claims against us as well. And then also along that front is an investment in fire, the high visibility jacket, which we worked with the fire division in the IAFF on a new coat, a new jacket, outerwear for our firefighters. Again, with the help of council in passing that legislation, some of it at the end of last year, some of it this year, and moved to a more visible outerwear for them, another safety item.
Thank you. Again, obviously, my support of the tasers is because I do believe that certainly will help our officers with greater tools they have to lessen the use of deadly forces. Certainly something I want to see is go in that direction. I want to talk a little bit about support services, Deputy Director, because I think, as you talked about, it is a very robust part of public safety, but it does not get quite the visibility of some of our other services, and they have certainly taken on quite a few new initiatives that are providing some consumer protections. We talk about day-to-day protections of life and property, but our consumer protection is just as important, and the vehicle for hire changes and many others that we have instituted over the last year has caused a great capacity impact on the license section, weights and measures, and the rest. I wanted, if you could, talk a little bit about going forward, and in this budget having the adds of the FTEs last year, the changes that are happening perhaps in support services to continue to manage capacity as we move forward, licensing food trucks and livery vehicle code changes we're proposing, and all of that, and the ability to manage with no additional adds this year related to support services.
Council Chair Mills, Council Chair Tyson, Council Chair Mills, you've been a strong advocate of some of the code changes and initiatives, obviously, that we've done in support services. One of them, of course, was the pilot program on the fuel testing, which was a significant initiative of yours. And I think the numbers back from that, I want to say around 300 inspections that were done, and thankfully only a few situations where we saw the quality of fuel. But that wasn't something we did before, and I think it was probably past time that we took a look at that. So that's certainly something that's going to be on our radar from year to year. The additional license officers for enforcement with the changes on the pedicabs. Obviously, the food truck initiatives, and if I recall correctly, we have sort of some temporary rules are out there with the food trucks, and certainly they add a new element and vibrancy to the city. At the same time, we've got to be concerned about consumer safety to some extent with them as well. So other initiatives that are coming in a city like Columbus, where we have people coming to it, are going to present challenges to us. But again, I think we're poised with your support in some of these changes and adding these personnel to be able to deal with some of the license issues that we have in the city.
Thank you. I think it's important to educate the public about some of these initiatives that we take under sometimes has a capacity and resource add, and that creates sometimes a financial addition to our current general fund budget. So safety is not all just police and fire. There's other backroom and backbone services to safety that requires some support. You talked a little bit about a subject I wanted to move into, and that's the event and visitor impact on safety as it relates to all operations to maintaining safety for our citizens when we have marathons and the like. And you talked a little bit about managing overtime. Can you talk a little bit about, in 2014, the management of how we continue to provide a safe city? Some of the asks that we've had financially last year that are good one-time costs to the city that will benefit us going forward. Should we increase in events, visits? 2014 not being a presidential election year gives us a little bit of a break in terms of operations, but yet a robust year in terms of events if we continue to trend well as we have with the Sports Commission and Experience Columbus. Could you add some commentary related to that? I appreciate it.
Yes, Chairman Mills, Chairman Tyson. Again, the beautiful thing about Columbus is we do attract a lot of visitors. It is a very vibrant city. It gets more vibrant all the time. I think anyone that comes downtown, whether it's the first weekend of the month or when any of our special events are going on, will see that Columbus is a very vibrant city, and we're, of course, adding with economic development, a lot of housing downtown. So the safety of those citizens is something that I know that the director and the chief are very mindful of. Fortunately, it's something that's usually very well planned. We have a consistent calendar of events and ongoings that happen throughout Columbus each and every year. We have individuals involved that have a long standing in the police division that are used to traffic flows and have dealt with these kinds of issues for many years. Things that happen in downtown communities like what's happened in Boston obviously causes us to look and assess what we are doing. And again, with council support, we put some downtown safety cameras in. That was something that we looked at to do. Obviously, any time we have events downtown that we go over our plans and check them and make sure that we have the correct information to keep our citizens safe. Downtown Columbus is a very safe place to be, and again, just the example of that is just a vibrancy when people are out and enjoying themselves. And hopefully, 2014 is not a presidential election, but we still, we're going to have some. Ohio State University always presents some challenges to us, typically with home football games, but. These aren't unknown to us. These are things that both police and fire over time have honed their skills on. So I'll let the chief add any additional comments, either one actually as appropriate.
Thank you. I would just reiterate what the director said. I believe that Columbus is a growing community, not only because of the investment that council and the administration have put into infrastructure and various other things, but because we are a safe town, and that word gets around. And we continue to try to fight crime where we can so that people will continue to want to live in the areas. We just did a big bust yesterday to ensure that the investment put into the Short North continues to be an area where people want to move about safely, and they can, because we continue to fight crime in the areas that we are investing in, and the areas that we are still trying to get to, have some regeneration. So we are always looking for ways to make people in this entire city and visitors to it feel safe to move around, because I truly believe that the more people out and about means that there are more opportunities for people to see that I'm not going to do my crime here because there's too many witnesses, there's too much going on, so I'll go find someplace else where I won't be seen. So I think that the investment in making this a desirable place to see and to be in is protected by those people that are willing to be down here, and they feel safe because we have a very visible presence, not only in the downtown area, but in many other areas. We are out on bikes, we are out in cruisers, we have our community response teams that are not tied to calls for service, so they're available to go respond immediately to a citizen's call about a short-term or a long-term problem. So I think we're dealing very effectively and using our budget wisely with putting our resources and our staff out there where they need to be so that people feel safe being out and about in the community.
Thank you both. I wanted to talk a little bit about minority recruitment. I appreciate Councilmember Tyson opening the discussion and being a part of that. For the last 9 months, I feel I'm pretty educated on where we're going. I know that we're still waiting on some information from outside source to support some strategies and things that we'll implement, but I think the proposed budget number will help implement some of those, and the partnerships with the other departments will help with that so that it doesn't become a more costly adventure, but we're certainly looking forward to investing in minority recruitment. And the last 9 months have told me a lot about the challenges related to minority recruitment. I'm still looking for us to have some impact in that area as we continue to recruit and retain our current officers and firefighters, but also making sure that we are representative and reflective of our community. My next questions are related to the property room. I want to take this opportunity to thank again our Director of Finance, Paul Rakowski, and the acquisition of the property room that's helping the crime lab and all of the smart decisions made with the space for that to allow for the crime lab. I know, Deputy Director Dan, you try to cover everything, but can you speak a little bit about the space, the new forensics FTEs that we're adding, but also because of the advanced technology equipment, the new challenges that we were not faced with many years ago, such as bath salts and the testing that now requires more equipment, which then requires more space, and educated personnel to analyze and make sure that everything is processed properly. If you could speak a little bit to that, I appreciate it.
Yes. Chairman Mills, Chairman Tyson, again, we are very excited about the renovation of the crime lab and moving them next to the property room, which that in itself will be a big efficiency for us. The way it's been for many years, our property room was a significant distance away from our crime lab. That evidence had to be transported back and forth. That will no longer be the case. Once these two entities are both co-located at Woodrow Avenue, the police division did a fantastic job in moving the property room. I forget the thousands of items that we had, tens of thousands really, but they did a tremendous job in moving that in a very efficient manner. That is up and running, and we're excited to have Crime Lab really what will be right next to them. Again, I mentioned earlier the space. They're going to have a lot more room. We're looking at, when we design that, we're probably a 20 or 30 year build out. So we have a lot more space in this crime lab. And as I said, because of the importance of DNA now evidence is crucial in many cases for police and for the prosecutors. Having these additional forensic scientists will greatly increase our ability to deal with all that evidence and to turn that information around a lot faster. Again, just sort of a cautionary note that while we're going to, we have 9 positions, additional positions in the budget for this, we have to go out and find them. Unfortunately, they're not necessarily beating our door down. But so we've got to go find people, and then we got to keep them because they're in high demand. So once we train them, we have to keep them, and that sometimes presents challenges to us as well. We've had problems holding on to some in the past. But we are hopeful, and we're going to get these individuals in. We're going to have a great facility for them to work in. We will have, are looking right now, reviewing probably $1 million equipment list of new equipment to go in this facility. In addition, we have some grant money that's allocated. I think it's around $300,000, of which I believe council either has already approved or will approve soon an important piece of equipment out of that grant money, and that'll be something that works out of the crime lab. So we're very excited about this, and I think Chief Jacobs as well is excited. So we're looking forward to this. And another example in terms of property room evidence, a lot of this will be DNA type evidence that we'll have to keep. I think when we were at Fairwood, we had one freezer for this stuff. This evidence to be housed in. We have 2 now at the property room. We have room, I think, to build 2 or 4 more. So we're looking down the road at the future to be able to take care of all the evidence that we need to handle.
Thank you. I have one more lighthearted question and commercial for the property room before we conclude this evening, but I'll move to another very important topic, and that is the number of personnel within our safety divisions, and allow you some time to address the retirement projections that we make and the balance of covering our city and at the personnel levels that are proposed in this year's budget. And certainly Chief Jacobs, Chief Paxton, if you would like to speak to that, I appreciate it.
With respect to the number of police officers, we will end this year right around 1,900, give or take a few, depending on when individuals might choose to retire towards the end of the year. We anticipate losing 70 police officers next year. Again, that's going to be probably pretty consistent with what we've done the last couple years. Sometimes those numbers do fluctuate a little, but these are best estimates at this point. And we, of course, anticipate replacing those 70 officers by having 2 classes of 35 each in the police division, 1 in June of 2014, 1 in December. With respect to the fire division, we will, right now I think we're at 1,547 firefighters. We got about 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks left in the year. So it's potentially, if someone's could fall off the payroll by the end of this year, but we'll be right around that number. We anticipate 40 firefighters leaving in 2014, and we will have a class of 40 firefighters to replace them. That class will be is scheduled for June of 2014. So again, we'll be right around that 1547, 1550 mark, probably by the end of next year. That's what we anticipate.
Thank you, Chair Mills and Chair Tyson. With regard to staffing, you would probably never hear me say that we have enough, because I do believe that the officers on the street are what make people in the city feel safe. And we have constantly changing needs. So with the staff that we have, I'm constantly trying to figure out what has the priority as far as deploying the current staff that I have. I will always be an advocate as well for hiring approximately every 6 months. I do believe that if we can continue to hire on a regular basis, that will help our recruiting. I do believe that we need to proactively stay ahead. Even though we'll hire those 70 next year, they won't be available to us as trained officers until 2015. So the class that's graduating in January will be our replacements for those 70 that will be retiring during the year. But I do appreciate being able to maintain. I know that other police agencies in this country aren't not able to do that, but Columbus is a growing city, and I think we need to keep up with that. I do believe that we will do the best that we possibly can with the staff that we are given. I will cut from one place and add to another as our needs change. I do believe that we need to continue to address some of our gang issues, our shooting issues, our violence issues, our domestic violence issues. That is the one crime that we make the most arrests for every single year, is domestic violence. It's an ongoing problem. It's a life-changing event in many children's lives, and I think that we need to continue to pay attention to that. That's why Mr. Pfeiffer referenced the stalking investigations in our domestic violence unit. But I do believe that we need to keep our eye on our staff. I do want to be responsible to the citizens of Columbus by not asking for too many, but we will responsibly use what we have and make the choices that we have to do with prioritization. I had a meeting today with a group of people that we share members with on a task force. Yesterday we did a press conference about another task force that we work with. We are combining our resources with other agencies, whether they're state, local, or federal, to make sure that we're getting some cooperation, collaboration, and sharing resources. You know, some people have technical skills, and we have the staff, and other people have access to, you know, whether it's warrants or something else that we need. So we will be continuing to collaborate with other agencies to share some resources and work effectively together to not only deal with some local crime that occurs on a daily basis. As the director said, we've had a number of crimes that have occurred while we're sitting here, and yet we also will continue to deal with those crimes that you know, cross our borders and cross our jurisdictional lines, and continue to look at those things that might threaten the safety of our citizens, whether it's you know, a crime of violence, you know, whether it's a gun crime, or whether it's some type of a terroristic event. We'll always be prepared and be ready to preserve the safety as best we can and to accomplish our mission.
Chief Paxton.
Many of the things that Chief Jacobs said apply to fire. In one sense, we're very thankful for how well we have fared over the past 5 years. We can always do more with more officers or police firefighters. One thing we have been doing for the better part of the last month is doing a needs assessment around the city of Columbus. This is an update of something that was done long ago, but it has needed to be updated. As I mentioned earlier, we are trying to make our policies and recommendations based on data. That data is not easy to get all of the time, but it is the basis for recommendations. And in a short time, I should be getting a compilation of all that data that will look at staffing levels and our needs for firehouses in various parts of the city. That's it.
Thank you. I will turn the floor back to Deputy Director. I had one last mention in relationship to the property room, and I know that it is December and many may be thinking about purchases. They certainly can purchase items out of the property room, and that is good support and revenue, so I just wanted to put a plug in that since we are just before the holidays. Thank you, Deputy Director, and it is now the portion of our hearing in which we allow for public testimony. I have 2 speaker slips, and I'll ask that if you have signed up to speak, if you could begin to get closer to the podium so that we can continue very rapidly through this portion of our hearing and try to get everyone home before too long. The first speaker I have is Jack Reel. Mr. Reel, President Reel, congratulations, Reel, all of that. If you would please state your first and last name and any organizations that you may represent. You have 3 minutes to address council in relationship to tonight's public safety and judiciary budget hearing.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Reel.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Jack Reel. I'm the president of Columbus Firefighters, Local 67, 379 West Broad Street. Good evening, Chairwoman Mills, Chairwoman Tyson. Thank you for the opportunity to address the proposed 2014 public safety budget. As you recall, I stood at this podium earlier this year and asked that you consider reinforcing the fire and EMS infrastructure in this great city in order to be prepared for our ongoing growth. I stand before you again asking the same before it is too late and we cannot overcome the negative impact of a waning workforce or an inadequate deployment model. Mayor Coleman made the statement during the budget presentation that our city population has grown by 11% since the year 2000. The fire department's calls for assistance have grown by 21% during that same time period. Our service area has grown through council's action on annexation. And while all of these are good signs of a vibrant city, our fire department staffing has remained stagnant since 2000. We've seen major increases in population density in design neighborhoods outside the outer belt. In these areas, we have tens of thousands of Columbus taxpayers being serviced by taxpayer-provided services of other communities like Gahanna, Hilliard, and Westerville. In addition, there seems to be little concern about whether the services being provided in these communities to our citizens is comparable to that being provided by the Columbus Fire Division. We're placing the burden of our responsibility on other communities' tax base. In 2013, we had 45 retirements. We anticipated 35. Next year, we're anticipating 40 retirements. However, we have over 350 firefighters currently eligible to retire. What that means is that a poor decision at the State House could end up with a large loss of our workforce. We've seen it happen in the past. It could happen again. In my 12 years as president of the Columbus Firefighters Union, I've watched the budget for the safety department continue to be limited. And while we always throw about this 70% figure that the administration would like to talk about, the fact of the matter is that it's gone from 73% to this year's 66%. And that's a concern. We cannot continue to have this department do more with less. At some point, the return on investment will not be there. I'm asking that on behalf of the taxpayers who wear this CFD uniform, the citizens and our visitors to this great city, that you increase the budget for the Department of Public Safety in order to allow for more hiring of more firefighters in 2014. Thank you.
I don't like to take up your time. You still have a few seconds left, so I didn't want to cut you off. I have some questions, though, related to your testimony, and I just want to ask the Deputy Director to respond where I need clarity. And particularly, and I believe Chief Paxton talked about I don't want to say lack is such a strong word, but accurate and thorough data related to the outlying areas that do not exist in your suggestion of 10,000 of residents in these areas needing additional service?
We have tens of thousands of residents living in City of Columbus areas outside the outer belt. And many of these areas are serviced by other communities for the Columbus Fire Division through our automatic response agreements.
Okay, thank you. I also, Deputy Director, I'll allow you to respond at the end. I wanted to talk about the percentage of the budget related for safety. Are you alluding to the budget percentages for the safety divisions themselves or overall public safety?
Overall public safety.
And I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. The projection of the 40 that we saw this evening, the projected number in terms of personnel retirements, 350 are eligible? And last but certainly not least, I wanted to ask a question about the run data, the increase in the runs that you mentioned. Could you go over that again?
We had approximately 121,000 calls for service in 2000. And last year, as you saw from the director's presentation, we had almost 150,000 calls for service. That's with the same number of firefighters as in 2000. We pretty much remained stagnant. If my numbers are correct, I believe we had 1,530 firefighters in 2000. We have 1,547 right now, and anticipate that we'll keep 1,547 throughout the end of the year. But basically, the numbers have remained stagnant through that time. We did have a dip below 1,500 during the 2009 period when we weren't hiring because of the income tax. We got the income tax passed and brought it back up to the 1540 range. But it's been pretty much stagnant for the last 13 years.
And just so that I captured your overall request or for thoughts of consideration is for additional firefighter personnel and also increased capacity in the outer belt areas for residents.
Well, we can't increase the capacity in the outer belt areas in 2014. I mean, there's no possible way to do that. It takes us 7 months to train firefighters. We can't put enough of them through to get that done. But we have to start preparing for the future. And we need to start hiring firefighters now so that when we are prepared with the data that the chief mentioned, that we can start putting fire stations in place where they're needed to service those areas.
Okay, thank you, President Real. Deputy Director Dan Giangardella, if you would like to add some commentary related to the testimony of President Real, I appreciate it.
Chair Mills and Tyson, again, we'd be happy to sit down with Jack and look at numbers and so forth. Obviously, the director would look to any kind of recommendation that might come from the fire chief if we're going to be in a situation where we're looking at service areas. I would, though, like to point out to council that if you look in the budget document as provided by Finance on pages 27-2 and -3, there is some performance data in there, and I would just like to point out it speaks to the excellent job that the fire division does. There's two very high-profile performance measures in that document. If I may just reference them. One of them deals with the number of fire response, incident response within 8 minutes, which is, I believe, NFPA standard. Chief can correct me on that. We were at 98% of that midway through this year. Our goal is 80%. The other performance measure with respect to that is that's for fire engine. The other is for emergency medical response, again, within 8 minutes. Our goal is 80%. Mid-year this year, we were at 92%. So again, I think it just speaks to the level of service that we are providing. President Real is correct. There are a number of agencies, maybe as many as 20, that come into Columbus. That's called mutual aid, automatic response. But we go into their communities as well. This isn't anything new. This has been going on for years. Again, Chief Paskin can address some of that. But this is not a new phenomena. But again, we'd be happy to sit down and look at numbers and be able to maybe come up with a plan for the future.
I'm going to ask Chief Paxton, did you have any commentary you'd like to ask?
Certainly. The information we have been gathering includes checking the trend in population density using census data and by zip code in the areas that President Real was referencing. Also projections from 2010 census to the 2020 census, and using that data as one component of a plan for future expansion. We're also looking at response times and response volumes in the areas that are outside of the outer belt. And once this data is in, we will certainly share that with Local 67 to develop a plan to maximize service to everyone in the city of Columbus.
So I just want to be clear that Chief and Deputy Director, you acknowledge that there is some need to pay attention to when it comes to those outlying areas related to our capacity.
I think there is a need to evaluate every aspect of our service in the Division of Fire, at least, because it has been a number of years, in my opinion, since we've done a thorough investigation that's data-driven to determine what our policies and practices should be. And it's been the goal of my time as chief to accomplish that. And one aspect of that is examining the shifting population and the growing land mass of the city of Columbus in terms of fire service and coverage. That's it.
Thank you. I believe Councilmember Tyson has a question.
Thank you, Chairwoman Mills. I just have a question regarding, I know the percentage question that came up. And I know that in the past, we're always saying that, of course, that safety was 70% of the budget. But I want to just, as I'm looking at the public safety's budget, from the general fund budget of last year, it looks like the budget was projected was $513,495,780. And the proposed budget for 2014 is just general fund only. It's $528,839,105. And so, so dollars, there's an increase in the dollars, and I do understand the percentage issue, but I also know that we're now funding some of the other divisions, which hadn't been, some of the other divisions like I know health and recreation and parks and some of those other divisions that took significant cuts during the time that we were, 2007, 2008, et cetera. They've been taking significant cuts. They're now being restored in some ways. However, and that would lower the percentages of other areas. But in terms of money, the dollars are still showing there's still an increase in dollars. And so I'm just wanting to just kind of clarify that, or else, Dan, maybe you have some additional comments to make, but that's my understanding of what's really kind of taken place here. So dollars and percentages don't necessarily equate based upon we're funding some of the other areas that we made those cutbacks.
Chair Tyson, Chair Mills, the bottom line is safety has not had cuts to our budget. We've not had cuts in service even through 2 recessions of this past decade. We have more dollars each year. I'm not going to quibble about a percentage here, a 0.5% there. I don't think there's any value in doing that. I just want to be clear that we are happy with our 2014 budget. As both chiefs have acknowledged, sometimes you ask, can you use more? And the answer comes back, how much? And I think we need to be careful when it's easy to ask for more, but when you are dealing with issues, whether it's additional class of police officers or additional firefighters and fire stations, these are significant, would end up being for us mostly fixed costs, particularly when you're doing a fire station. So as I said earlier, we'd be happy to look at some data, whether that's President Reel or the fire chief, but the director's going to think very long and hard before we make these kinds of investments, and he's going to want to obviously analyze those things very closely. So again, we're very pleased, and whether it's 70% or 69.8 is immaterial to us, but we feel very fortunate that if you look around what's happened in the country the last decade, that Columbus, Ohio, we have not laid off police officers, we have not laid off firefighters. We have more today than we did, and we can quibble about whether it's 5 or 10 here or there, but we are in a very fortunate situation here, and we are very pleased with the budgets that we've been given.
Okay, we'll move forward with our next speaker. I believe Rachel Finney. If you would please approach the podium and state your first and last name and any organizations that you represent and proceed. You have 3 minutes to discuss your comments related to the 2014 proposed public safety budget.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Finney. I'm the Executive Director of the Capital Area Humane Society. We are a local private nonprofit organization that was founded in 1883. We celebrated 130 years this week. I am before you this evening to thank you for your consideration of the Humane Society's inclusion in the city's 2014 public safety budget and to provide you with a context for that request. In the state of Ohio, county humane societies have jurisdiction under Section 171706 of the Ohio Revised Code to enforce Section 959, which pertains to cruelty, abuse, and neglect of animals. Our jurisdiction is Franklin County. Over 90% of our funding comes from donations and from individuals and fees for services like adoptions. We literally fundraise to provide law enforcement services to our community. We employ 6 staff members in cruelty investigations as humane agents and dispatchers and respond to 6,000 complaints of animal cruelty and neglect each year. Our agents are in the community 365 days a year investigating complaints and providing support and services to Franklin County residents. More than 80% of our call volume is within the jurisdiction of the Division of Police in Columbus. If we were not here to do this work, those 5,000 plus calls would be the sole responsibility of the Division of Police. They are the only other agency with jurisdiction to enforce ORC Section 959 within the city limits. Quite simply, our efforts save the city millions of dollars and thousands of hours each year. But we don't just work alone, of course. Capital Area Humane Society is a team player. This year we worked in partnership with Columbus Police and Fire to hold accountable the man who brutally beat one dog with a hammer, locked her in a closet before setting the apartment on fire. He also stabbed another dog 7 times before she fled the apartment, only to be hit by a passing car. I'm pleased to report that both dogs are happy and healthy in new homes as a result of our work. We responded to a referral from Columbus Health by investigating and removing 56 chickens and ducks from a West Side backyard, and those birds are now living happily on a farm in central Ohio. We aided the city attorney's office with a man who beat his ex-wife and then microwaved her cat. That man is now in jail with convictions of domestic violence and animal cruelty. You can see we do more than cuddle kitties and puppies all day. We're a team of expert law enforcement professionals, and we're equipped to provide the very best in veterinary forensic services nationally, setting a standard in that area. I have lots more to say, but I'm short on time. I do want you to know that we're an agency that works to protect our entire community. It's essential in ensuring total public safety. We take very seriously Mayor Coleman's support and our inclusion in the proposed budget. We are actively working on a combined partnership with the city, the Franklin County, Ohio State College of Veterinary Medicine, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, Ohio Wildlife Center, and more to make sure that we are as efficient as possible. We thank you sincerely for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Just in the nick of time. Councilmember Tyson, do you have any questions? Director Finney, I have 2 questions. When we last year met in relationship to the inclusion in the budget, there was conversation related to how to plan for greater efficiencies for Humane Society. Could you please provide me with an update related to that? I appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you, Chairman Mills. Yes. The most important thing to note is that we have worked in partnership with all the agencies that I mentioned, and we have made advancements, though not nearly as fast or as speedy as I would like to report out. One challenge that we have had is in securing a facilitator for the discussion of assessing community needs as it relates to all animal services. We did find one, though he was hired away. That was Ty Marsh, and he will be working with SWACO, so we need to figure out another facilitator for that conversation, though the Columbus Foundation is helping to support that effort to be able to conduct that research. And that's really what's going to give us the information that we need to know not only where are our needs, because we all can come up with a list of things that we need, but how do we really define the assets that we have available? Because we do have a lot of assets in this community. My belief and the belief of others around that table is that if we combine them effectively, we're going to do a much, much better job and do it more efficiently.
And I'm glad that you provided that update, because one of the things that I think helps in moving forward to help drive resources and support to the great work of the Humane Society, because you do great work, is the education about, as you provided us today, that I think so many of our citizens and many, many individuals throughout our city have no idea the benefit. I know our Columbus Division of Police are grateful for all the work, but I think that all of the incidents that you described, and particularly sharing with us about how you support those who are challenged with domestic violence issues and refusing to leave their home without knowing about the safety of their pets can be critical. And that has an entire impact on the entire family. And those pieces of education that I think the visibility and awareness of what is provided to the city is greatly needed. So one of the things I was hoping through that process, and glad to see you're still thinking to move forward, is that that would increase the education and awareness, which helps discussions, both not on the local level, but county level and the state level, about the need in our community when these services are called upon, and how wonderfully responsive your organization has been to making that happen. And so the outcome of that process, I really would hope to be the awareness and education about the need and the critical areas that you provide services, because I don't think many of our citizens are aware of it. So I want to thank you again and your team for supporting our division and making sure that all of our citizens, our four-legged, two-legged, fur, feather, all of those are protected, because I know that, you know, as with me, a pet is a member of the family, and so our citizens are those families, and if that's a four-legged member, then we need to make sure we're providing the protection. So looking forward to that moving forward, which helps me educate others in discussions to continue the financial support. So again, thank you for coming down, and I just wish we could provide this level of information related to how important you are and your organization to the city, more than just at budget time. Looking forward to some of those marketing and materials and things that I think you're looking forward to as well, to help educate our public, because that will help ensure dollars and continue resources and potentially increase if the need is there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes, it doesn't seem like it, but I believe that concludes tonight's hearing of Public Safety and Judiciary. Certainly a lot of information, and I hope that not only were we able to educate our citizens on the budget and all the numbers, but the valuable services that are results of that investment that our city council and our citizens continue to enjoy. Again, it's a briefing, so it's a short look, highlight look. I encourage our citizens to educate themselves either through the website or other venues regarding the public safety and judiciary budget and all the budgets that demonstrate the use of the city's resources. I, again, thank each and every one of you for being a part of tonight's hearing, and look forward to any additional comments or questions related to this proposed budget to my office if you should have any. Thank you all, and have a safe travel home or wherever you shall be traveling to after tonight's hearing. Good night.